going on? Welcome to another episode of Mental Mail. And today we're gonna kind of let me preface and start like this. I always listen to that song by Scarface, "The Wall." And when I was younger and listened to it, it's just kind of like vibing to the beat. Heard a few things, but didn't really get into it. As you got older and you start really revisiting the song, man, there's a lot of things in that song that we as men deal with. You know, we may not be able to let's see, identify with every single piece of that song, but I believe there's pieces in that song that we can identify with. He starts off the beginning of it with talking about, how he's looking at himself in the mirror, it's scary, and it's slowly coming clearly. And, you know, I don't know about you, but you think about when you were younger, and then as you get older and you begin to like assess your life. It's like you looking at yourself in the mirror and you don't like what you become. And that's not that could be a plethora of different things. We're not talking about just, you know, I became this mean person, or um I don't have I haven't achieved what I want to achieve. Because some of have achieved financial success, some of has achieved success on our jobs, success in our careers, but mentally in our minds, we don't recognize ourselves. There's some things up there that's that scares us. Whether it's scary that we don't like what we think about, or we don't like, or not say like we don't know how to approach what we're dealing with emotionally. You know, and even the song itself, the walls. The wall symbolizes entrapment, imprisonment, um, something that's immovable, something that's strong, and you start thinking about that brings on loneliness. You know, if you think about being entrapped in something, being in a state of solitude, you become lonely. And I want to kind of, because loneliness is not just being by yourself too, because you could be lonely with a room full of people. Because if you how do I say this? If you feel like you not can make connections emotionally with people, that's loneliness. You're not making connection with people, and I'm talking about. I ain't not talking about that surface level stuff, but really making connections with people where I feel like this is someone I can vibe with. You become lonely, so you're in a room full of people, but you're lonely, and so those bring up walls because we raise up walls in our minds or figuratively for protection. If we've been hurt, I know men, we don't like talk about being hurt, but if you've been hurt in a relationship, you've been burnt in a friendship, you put a wall so that won't happen again. And then the next relationship you get into, you put up walls, and that wall be getting thicker and thicker and thicker until it's hard to penetrate that wall. I'm gonna I gotta look down my notes sometimes because my mind like it used to be. But according to an article on Psychology Today, um, loneliness is correlated with health problems like cardiovascular disease and stroke. So you can become lonely so bad and so much and not deal with it. It brings on a heart attack. It brings on a stroke. The article further talks about how women in heterosexual relationships are the one who keeps the relationship of the man of the two men going. So for instance, um, say you're in a relationship and your woman, and let's talk about neighbors because I think that's a little easier. So say you're in a relationship and you got a neighbor and they're a couple too. And so it's always not always, but 9 times out of 10, it's the woman that, hey, why don't you go over there and talk to Bob? Why don't you go there and talk to, such and such and things like that. They're the ones that keeping it going because men, we are more geared towards, hey, let me bring the money in. I bring the money, that's good. We are socialized as men to be the breadwinners. We are socialized as men to focus more on being successful than being emotional healed, being emotional, have an emotional strength. And I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I was talking about how, like, as I gotten older, I'm trying to tap into being, a better person, wherever that looks like, you know, being better, dealing with my emotions and not acting out all the time and not being angry all the time or launching out and just kind of dealing with my emotions and being able to talk to somebody about my emotions so I'm not hanging on to them so I can release them and it's not being bogged up inside. I said, but at the same time, because of the way we were socialized as men, when I begin to talk about my emotions with another men, it brings on this feeling like, ugh, what I'm saying? I can't, it's like, either you feel uncomfortable talking to another man about your emotions because the way you've been taught as a man. And even as that man, another man tried to be considerate of it, he tried to cuss it short. Okay, man, that's enough to talk about this. We might throw a joke in there or just cut you short and keep it moving. It's not a long conversation about it. If you do have someone that's even considered talking to you about it. And I remember my dad used to always tell me, he said, hey, you know, stop looking at things so emotionally and be more logical. And to a degree, he was right. Because you got to have, there's a scripture I always use in Proverbs. It talks about a false balance being an abomination. And I know that scripture not directly related to how I use it, but I use that as a way of keeping balance in my life. You have to be balanced in a way where, yeah, as a man, you don't always want to be wearing your sleeves on your shoulder. I mean, wearing your feelings on your shoulder. You always want to be wearing your feelings on your shoulder. But at the same time, you have to have a balance where you can have an outlet to release those emotional feelings. Um, Joseph Fort Newton says men build too many walls and not enough bridges. And I think that's key, man, because we look at protection all around. We put these walls up all around. We build these forts. I mean, as kids, what we do, we build forts. You know what I'm saying? We taught to build these walls all around us, but we don't build bridges, connecting ourselves to others. And I think that's very profound. I mean, I can go deeper into that, but I kind of want to break down some more of the psalm. He talks about, and I think in another part where he says, um, he's battling with himself, hearing voices in his head, and he's talking about, and he goes further and talk about being depressed. And how many times have we as men felt depressed? Either A, we didn't recognize we were depressed, or B, we knew there was something wrong, but didn't know how to handle it. And I think it's key when you listen to some of the things he says in the song because, you know, hearing these voices in his head. And, it's times where I got these, and I was like compared to that back in those days, you see those cartoons, you got the devil on the shoulder and you got the angel on the other shoulder. It's like you had these voices tell you, don't do this, you should do that. No, forget that, do that. And you hear these voices in your head. And I know in this song, he's probably talking about something a little more deeper than that, because I think he touches more on, because even Diary of a Madman, he talks about being schizophrenic, you know, and kind of dealing with that, you know, drastic change in emotion from one time you hear, another time you hear. So it's almost and there's another personality that kind of steps in and takes over, and that's key. But I'm kind of dealing with more of a surface level thing because not all of us are to that extreme of schizophrenia, but we may have these voices that we constantly dealing with in our head that we don't know how to deal with, and brings on depression. Man, depression, being depressed is so much a thing that we don't even recognize. And it's funny when I was talking to somebody else about, depression and stuff, a lot of people are depressed don't realize they're depressed. You know, they don't want to go nowhere. I don't want to do that. You know, that could be part of a onset depression. Um, Never wants to, kind of be involved in anything. That could be a on-site depression. Now, I'm saying all those things are, but it could be a form of depression. And I think there's a lot of people in our lives that were depressed. And I'm talking about father figures, grandfathers, men figures in general, and we didn't realize they were depressed. I mean, the brilliance and the poeticness and the insight of this song, "The Wall" by Scarface, is powerful. He speaks about uh, the coping mechanism, and this is so key. The coping mechanism of, he was like, "I'm doing fine, so pass me the formaldehyde. The only way I can cope is when I'm drunker than a motherfucker puffing on some poking smoke." That's a coping mechanism. You're coping, you are masking, you're drinking, you're masking getting high for coping with the problem and the issues you're dealing with in your head. This is key. I think that you see this a lot today. And I'm not saying that everybody that drinks, everybody that smokes are masking something. And so I know I have to keep reiterating that because I know sometimes the people will get in the comments, well, so and so drink, don't mean they cope. No, I'm not saying that. But I am pointing out from not only from these lyrics, but bringing those lyrics into our everyday lives is that there are people, and we see it, that use alcohol, that use other things to cope or mask the emotional deficit. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? He says, I scream. He said, there's no one to hear me scream. I guess it's hard to hear me scream when I'm screaming inside. That's a battle that you deal with. Can you imagine that? Just think about that for a second. Think about that. You screaming, but you're screaming inside. That's a battle that you're dealing with, and it's like almost like you tortured. You are being tortured every day, mentally tortured. You're screaming, and you don't know how to even get that out. You're screaming, and it's just like in your head, but you don't know how to express it. You can't articulate it. So you just keep it to yourself. So you're screaming inside. You are slowly suffering inside of your mind. Oh my! I mean, when I think about that, I even think about myself. You know what I'm saying? Well, it's things that sometimes I deal with, and I don't know how to articulate it because part of it is the way I was socialized. Other part of it is because of my upbringing. Other part of it is shame. You got all these different levels to it. That how did you deal with certain things, but you can't articulate, you can't express it, you don't know how to say it, and so you keep it to yourself, but slowly it's turning over in your mind. Slowly it's turning over in your spirit, so to speak, in your soul, where you just screaming inside. And it's almost that's that wall that's keeping you trapped in, and you can't get it out. And then in the last verse, he kind of talks about his relationship with his mother. It probably been better if he wasn't born. You know, and my daddy should have quit you right before he hit you. Um, and all the things he was around as he grew up. And, he saw killing after killing. He saw, Dillons after Dillons and all the things he saw as he grew up. And you think about that as a parent, some things we can't help. Some things we just can't help. It's just, some things we do as parents, we just can't help the fact that this is how it affects our child. Let me say that. But at the same time, we have to be cognizant of the fact that things that we do around our kids is affecting them mentally. And I think about things I saw as a kid, things I was around as a kid. As I grew up, that affected me as an adult. It helped shape the way my relationships are. It helped shape the way I deal with problems. It helped shape the way I do my everyday life. All those things help shape that. You are molding a child, and he kind of deals with that in I think it's in the last verse. But the biggest thing is like the climax of it to the song. He talks about Mr. Scarface versus Mr. Scarface. And he tells one is too smart, the other's too fucking hard. And he goes and talk about this battle of these two people inside of him. I want to be this, but this what comes out. You know, how many people deal with that? And I was before I go a little before I finish, I'm gonna wrap this up. But I do want to say this about one thing about this channel. This is not a solution based channel, but this is a channel based on I want to start a conversation. So I put things out, get into the comments and let's talk about this. And I want it to be a forum where people can talk about different things. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, you ever think, I don't know if you ever experienced that, but you were in a place where you know this is where I want to be. This is where I want to go. But because of the things I've dealt with, the things I've been through, this is what really comes out. And I'm battling between these two different people. And then he talks about further, you see where he slips, mentally starts slipping into the state. I won't say it's schizophrenia, but it's like the state of mind where he's listening to ultimate reality, I guess, for lack of better words. And he's just battle. In his mind, he thinks he's fighting. He said, he swing, he reconnect. I'm struck. Caught it with a piercing left. Then realize I shot my own self. I think it's powerful, man. I mean, it's powerful when you look into how and break down this song. You see a person that is struggling mentally. Now, and it's another thing about the song. I just thought about this too. The people around him. How many people saw the struggle? Either A, they didn't understand the struggle, or B, did nothing as they saw him suffering, going through this. How many people out there today is experiencing that? You are suffering, you are battling, even taking your life, and no one's either A, stepping in or even noticing that you're dealing with something like that. And then he said, I realized I shot myself. He said, hey, wait, suicide is quicker, you know. And then as he sees himself slipping away into death, he realized how much stuff he missed, how much stuff I could have done better. I do like being alive. I do like this. I do like that. But by that time, if no one catches, it's too late. If you don't get you to some emergency medical attention, it's too late. You just slipped off into death. So if you are dealing with that, you know, key into that part where he says, I done shot myself, and then as I shot myself, I felt myself slipping into the abyss, slipping to the unknown. I do want to be alive. And so many times you hear stories of people who have survived suicide where they said when they actually did the act, they realized this is not what they really wanted. They just wanted help. They just wanted relief from the pain, relief from the struggle, relief from mentally being the mental anguish. And I think that is key. You know, I think that's key. I think this song doesn't get its shine like it should because it's a brilliant song. Yeah, it's dark in a way because of what it talks about, but we label stuff like that as dark, but it's a reality. It's a reality, an everyday reality that men deal with every day. Not to say women don't deal with it, but I'm pointing out the fact that men deal with stuff and don't get the help that they need, don't seek the help or understand where to get the help. We emotionally, we don't believe in making those connections. But anyway, you know, I hope you got something out of this. It spoke to me when I was riding in my car, listening to the song. I say, I want to talk about this. And one of the things I'm gonna do with this channel is like talk about the things that be on my mind. And I hope you can get into these comments, man. And let's chop it up, man. Let's talk about it. Cause I want to create a forum where it's an open forum where we can talk about different things and hope we can help each other. Because there might be somebody that hears this that may be suffering and may be struggling, and you just need somebody just to get off your chest. And it's a lot easier to talk to somebody in the comments because it's a faceless person, but you actually just it's almost like writing in your diary. You kind of getting off your chest, and getting it off of you so you can emotionally and mentally be healthy. But till next time, peace.